We are
Hello.
live. Hello. So my name is Sunming,
Hi.
And I'm Tristan.
and we have Jerng or
I'm Jerng.
Jerng. Yeah, we just Jerng. So as usual, we're going to start with events. Then we're going to our bus corner. So
So,
what's happened next week?
devkami.com/meetups for
Correct.
all of your meetup needs. devkami.com/meetups. I also have to go there because I don't remember all of these.
Yep. So I can. Oh, can I get chat? Here? Oh, I have no idea how to do chat.
So,
Oh
we
well.
just finished KL Elixir today,
Yep.
just at the office. That's
From
why I'm
here.
here.
Yep. So okay, so starting on Friday, 6:30 p.m. at ADEX, there'll be an event on advancement on facial recognition. This is organized by ADEX. So if you're interested in machine learning and all that, join them. Then on Tuesday, what happened on Tuesday?
Tuesday is Ruby Tuesday. It's not
And
in
it
the
will happen
calendar.
it's not
It's
yet, but
happening at Surya Labs.
Surreal this time. This is
Yeah.
at Bangsa South at 7 p.m. I believe.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So and within the same week, IO Foundation will have an assembly event starting from Tuesday until Sunday. It's a whole day event. So well, if you can't join, then too bad because you got the whole week. So on daytime. So any other tech event happening the week? I don't think so. I
No,
think that's about it. That
well, it's already March, by the way, next week.
yes.
Seems like only recently we celebrated 2020.
Yep. Well, and it's been eventful because we're full of viruses and stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Let's go to our bus corner. So anything interesting from bus corner?
Buzz Corner. Let's take a look.
So the first one that is interesting is that Cloudflare had a GetX servers, and interestingly, they are using AMD EPIC processor. So AMD had a good run recently as a good competitor to Intel. Man, I almost forgot about
Yeah.
them.
So did Cloudflare choose AMD because of a good business deal or because AMD is better?
I don't know for sure, but price by price for us, AMD have been competitive in terms of pricing and performance. They are reasonably reliable product on server side now. Used to be they are well known on desktop, but servers uh, they are competitive now. They are competitive against Intel right now.
Mm-hmm.
So any interesting thing else that's interesting?
Well, there was this,
Safari.
yeah.
Go on. Go on
Well, there
first.
was the Qubit Academy uh, link that was going around on the Slack channels and on social media
Right.
about Kubernetes courses, and apparently it's actually quite good,
Yep.
and it's free. So I guess people were thinking it's too good to be true, and what's the catch? So far, I
Yep.
don't think there's a catch for this one. It's just good content about containers and Kubernetes.
Okay. Safari will now do not trust certificate older than 365 days. Uh, it used to be certificate are trusted until 1 year plus 3 months, 390 days or something. So Safari reduce it. So one of many things Safari does. What else? I think that's about it. Oh yeah, final one. This is a bit more personal to me. Do you know the Snake programming language?
I looked at it when you mentioned it.
So yeah, I'm the one to share. So what happened is, PyCon Malaysia, they started their CFP. They announced they already announced the venue, and more importantly, they announced the early bird, the CFP, and the venue. And more importantly, their keynote speaker is actually name is called Kenneth. I'm so sorry for not prepared properly, but it's Kit Packard, and he had a Python-inspired language for embedded system called Snake,
But
SNEK.
doesn't MicroPython already do this?
So the interesting thing about this is actually a lot smaller. That it will target architecture that can't run MicroPython, where MicroPython is too big for them. So, for example, the traditional Arduino, it can run on those. So the goal is we provide something like basic of the old embedded system in the old days. So, Kip Packard, the creator of Snake, will be the keynote speaker of PyCon Malaysia 2019.
Is that name going to confuse people even more? Like Python
yes,
and
it will.
Snake.
It will, but it depends on the adoption. The only thing is Snake doesn't do network and all that yet. They mostly do only GPIO. It is a smaller, very smaller target, but very interesting. So that's it. I think that's about it for Buzz Corner. Anything else on your side?
I think that's it.
All right,
No.
cool. Let's start with our interview. So what our guest today is Jerng. Jerng is let me try to put it in a simple language. He's a nerd that turned business person.
Yeah, that works. My main commitment is to run a business at this point.
Correct.
Yeah. So
let's introduce yourself. Anything that I missed, give us more detail and whatnot. So what's your background?
Okay. Yeah, so some background. I'm 36, 37 this year. I have some interest in computers since a pretty young age. I mean, participating in school studies and things like that, but I didn't really study it in university. So I only picked up more programming stuff in the workplace after graduation. Did more of it from 2009 onwards. And then a little bit of freelance work, a little bit of employment, maybe more home study for fun. And so actually now I am not responsible for any live systems. So I am honored to be considered still a techie, although I have some techie hobbies which don't see the light of day. Mainly, otherwise I run a coffee shop. That is my current job. I've been doing it for 5 years.
Okay, cool. So the coffee shop thing is something that you do more recent than your tech thing.
Well, it's not so much a pet. It's almost like a kid. If you are going to start a business, especially if you're taking other people's money, you have to take care of it properly. Right. So, I mean, even for the first 4 years, I was pretty much living next to the office because it's 24-hour shop. So, you know, if people call with problems like, I'm vomiting, please take over my shift. I mean, yes, okay, fine, I will take over your shift now. So it's like that kind of business, very hands-on.
Okay, so how's the transition like, actually?
Okay, I guess I looked at some of your previous shows, and most of the community here is they're actually professional developers and techies, and I probably don't come from the same background. I come from a generalist, maybe either humanities considered background, a bit here, or generalist background, a bit here, a bit there. So there's not a big transition for me because running a coffee shop is a generalist operation. You're going at very low common denominator. You need to cook, clean things, train people, hire, fire, do accounts. Very, very simple IT, nothing complicated. Anybody can do. It's just weird hard work.
Understand that. So I find it that really interesting because believe it or not, often when we do freelance, it's essentially just that, right? You work, you clean, if you're lucky, even when you're home, you definitely have to clean, then you just work and do your accounting. But what's the difference between the business of the tech side and or the F&B side, for example? What would be the big difference down here?
Okay, let's say you're a freelance tech person and you're a freelance F&B person. And then let's say you're F&B business owner, and then you're a tech business owner. So for the freelance, in both cases, you have very limited responsibility, probably. But for the tech guy, you're going to need a much greater conceptual skill set. Whereas for the F&B freelance, maybe you need to have some hand skills, or you're just physically fit and are disciplined enough to follow instructions. In tech, if you're a freelance, people expect you to know what you're doing. They don't expect you to go to work and then they have to tell you CSS is this, HTML is that. So that would be the main difference, I think, for freelancers. The skill set requirement is very different.
Right.
From a business owner point of view, it's very different because for tech, you have some compliance like personal data, regulatory compliance, government compliance, like the Personal Data Protection Act, and you have to pay your taxes for certain things to LHDN and things like that. But for F&B, you are now regulated on biological things, which means anything that touches the human body, from the pipe on the wall to the pipe that holds the gas, to the water pipe, to the sewage pipe, to the color of the walls, the floor, how high the tiles are, where your food comes from, the entire real-time operation. So it's kind of like DevOps in tech. It's a real-time operation where you have a lot of moving parts. So that is the business complexity if you're a business owner. Whereas in tech, maybe you can get by, you can run a business and be completely compliant, but you don't actually have to talk to that many regulatory bodies. Whereas in F&B, you are a bit more burdened, quite a bit more. So.
And also, unlike software business, literally no one will come to our place to inspect our servers. Imagine the equivalent of that.
It depends. If you're running like for PCI compliance, it really depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, but actually, that I don't think you then get to log into our servers, but they do. For PCI, a lot of it is about checkboxes, and also audit, script, report generation. People have no idea how easy it is for IT business is, because our compliance is a report generator, right? It's a report generator with checkboxes because nobody going to log into your servers. We have something a bit weirder. We have Tiger team, security checking. So those are white hats. But for F&B, you literally have people that not, and you have to let them in to inspect every single thing, right?
Okay, so it sounds very scary, and I think a responsible business owner needs to know all of that. And for better or for worse, different countries, the level of enforcement is very different from the actual on-paper requirements. So, for example, in 4.5 years, we haven't had a single inspector walk in for maybe most of the categories that need regulation, whereas certain categories, they walk in once a year, for example. So in practice, you will look at all the restaurants in Malaysia and you will find a lot of variance in compliance because of the low or weak enforcement across the country. I don't like that because that makes the playing field very noisy. It becomes a game of how non-compliant do you dare to be so you have a competitive edge because you're competing against everybody else who is also non-compliant.
Yes.
That is an interesting question.
Yeah, because if the way you say it, I find it very interesting because I do not know who the hell give the A grade to the restaurant outside of my house, and they don't deserve an A. Actually, it's very likely not an A. It's actually a B. I do not know how the hell they can get a B, but so if that's the way you say it,
so swimming is saying that it's lucky for technologists because there's less compliance. Well, not less, but less of these checks, and then So why would you? But why would you intentionally jump into something comfortable into something like very chaotic, like food?
Okay, I think I understand the question. The question is something like, if I can do tech stuff which is relatively like, sit in a chair all day, why would I want to get my hands dirty? I think it's, again, I'm not from a background where tech is the main thing and everything I know, and then I left that. It's more like the other way around. Tech is one of a bunch of many little things I study, and maybe even before I went to college, maybe I'm a little bit of a less ambitious person. I actually find it fairly fulfilling, or I can be happy as occupying myself, even cleaning a house. So the amount of effort it takes is not that great for me to jump into a housekeeping industry in the sense that I don't have any problem just getting my hands dirty, sweeping floors. And for example, at work, literally, we have to clean sewers as well. Now, that's a bump up. I had to learn about that. That's not sweeping the floor. But my temperament, my attitude towards life, I think is very laid back compared to people who want to be bankers or who want to list their companies on the NASDAQ. Oh, sure, those are nice. I'm up for that, but I'm not making a huge effort. So, yeah, that's maybe why I would do this.
Do you get to use any of your past technical stuff that you've done and brought it over to this new phase, I would say?
Okay. In this particular cafe that I'm running, we have some strange requirements. For example, the management team, for the most part, is not allowed to use social media. Let's not go into why, but the management team is not allowed to use social media. So what happens is that for a certain period, maybe 1 or 2 years, I had to do a lot of research into how Google Ads work, because Google Ads does not count as social media, and we can use that. One of the things that I learned about Google Ads was that when you're trying to buy an ad, they will ask you, how much do you want to pay? And then they can have an automatic strategy planner that says, use the rule, try and minimize your cost for every day and buy as many ads as possible, for example. The problem is we don't want to do that because there's only one time a day where it's cheapest. And so if you ask Google to optimize for all the cheapest ads in one day, it will buy all its ads at only one time of the day, right? So there's no automatic optimize for the cheapest of every hour. Now I had to script that myself. We literally had to reset a setting every hour to change the price to get us what we wanted, just to be able to match our business, which is 24-hour business. Right. We want ads going out 24 hours because we are running 24 hours.
Right. That thing by Google sounds very much like malicious compliance. Like, oh, you told me the rules, I'm going to comply just that much, while still complying, but actually not giving you what was your intention.
I suspect that it's not really required. Our compliance are more of the minimum that the customer wants.
Well, no, but I don't think that was what you wanted, right? You wanted the cheapest for a 24-hour business, but I guess that's where it came in. Like your previous skills would have come into actually scrape these things, get that information, trigger the APIs.
Yeah, so Google is very helpful, of course. Ads is their main business. There's so many features in there. So unfortunately, they didn't have a feature that is catered for 24-hour live business. They are more targeting people who want to do daily optimization. We need hourly optimization. So the script is, in summary, it's not that hard to write the script. But then how complex you make it, of course, is up to you. So we just adjusted the prices based on budget target every day, and then just got it run. And I mean, there's so much more detail I can jump into that, but it's just ads. Very simple advertising.
I also noticed that you like to experiment in technology on top of your business. So what's the recently I saw that you experiment with a Google Sheet to manage your business or thing like that. Can you talk about that?
Sure. For example, we are basically a startup. We're not a high growth company. So if you think startups are not high growth, then only high growth, then we are not a startup. But I think in the general broad sense, we are small, young, not very well funded business that is still in the phase of doing a lot of R&D to figure out if there's like a 10, 20-year business model. But we are just working on the present and paying the bills for now. So in that kind of scenario, we would want to minimize costs. We don't want to be using a lot of expensive licensing. So all our documentation, whenever possible, is on Google, for example. So we don't use Microsoft stuff because then you have to buy Microsoft licenses. We just use Google stuff, which is free for spreadsheets. All our menus, the graphic layout is not done in Illustrator, it's literally done in Google Slides, for example. I have a lot of my accounting done in Google Sheets, for example. So there is that. It's not very automatic, it's just any other office work.
Well, there's something unique though with one of the things that you were trying. It's not VNC, the other one, no machine, um, remote. Uh, I forgot what you called it.
Okay.
VNX,
Okay. So for
desktop.
I think I did look at No Machine recently. It's basically a remote desktop protocol,
Yeah.
and that is more of a very like background R&D. It doesn't directly affect our operations. General knowledge, a little bit of personal interest, more general knowledge. Where it would cross over into cost savings is that if you're using a lot of remote desktop, then you can run servers which can run really fast programs like heavy browsing, and then you have a really thin like 10-year-old client and use that instead. So that's just like background knowledge of how to overall reduce IT costs.
So you haven't implemented it yet, where you have like a central, really powerful computer, and everyone just uses like client machines, and everyone logs in.
It's because our day-to-day or hour-to-hour computing needs are not very great. My staff have their own laptop in the shop, and they will basically do stock check and update the spreadsheet, but even their laptop is overpowered for that. We are not at a point where we are running like 10, 20 graphic designers or whatever, that kind of thing, and they all have licenses to pay. But we know how to run those servers remotely in the future if we have to. If we ever need to roll out a lot of IT, maybe one day we'll become more of a tech company. Right now, we are very brick and mortar. So in terms of doing remote desktop protocols, not a lot used. It may be helpful to access, let's say the music player at work and then turn something on or off, but that's about it.
Yeah, but so I'm more interested that in your business operation side of things. Believe it or not, you're not missing a lot for not using corporate software, because those things are hassle. It's a hassle. So you might, as a small business, you are much better figure out your Google spreadsheet and hopefully use macros that you don't have to, right? So it's one of those things. Very interesting. So I'd like to talk about supply side of the business, right? One thing that is very weird about IT is that we never have a concept of inventory, even though the fact that we have servers and we almost never inventory those. As a result, Amazon will suck out a lot of money from us. So, what you think? What you think about that from your transitioning over about things like inventories and all that? Does it give a culture shock? Does it something we learn or something like that?
I think maybe it's a family thing. I come from a background where my dad's a really organized person, so maybe I grew up having a natural sense of how to just make things move like smooth traffic. And so really it's about flow. So the comparison with IT stuff or server stuff is that you're talking about caching and you're talking about flows of data. You have to change the data to tissue paper or coffee beans or something, and you still have to think about caching. So it's just that. It's setting a process in place which has sufficient updates. You have some prediction of consumption, and then you have actually people to check it if you don't have a bot. Of course, now it's very exciting in Malaysia. Also, you have a lot of these supply chain startups that are trying to add a service layer so that any random convenience store or coffee shop can just log into their system and order their things and have the platform track their inventory for them and auto order when they're out of stock. So basically, it's like a poor man's SAP where you have inventory management and ordering all built into the IT. Now, that's going to be difficult for systems integration. Every small shop is done differently. So good luck to those startups. I think it's interesting. Yeah.
So, okay. So, talk about that kind of situation. I have something down there. Okay. Let me think again. Tristan,
Well, I wanted to ask, like, how did you first start it? Like, what was the opportunity that made you decide, okay, I'm going to start a business that's completely offline, or not just necessarily offline, but completely like very different from a connected business? Because I would understand if it was digital marketing or a digital business thing, but this is a brick and mortar store.
Again, I got to remind you, we actually come from very different backgrounds. I think your average member of your community is very comfortable in a white collar job, but maybe not so used to the noise and bustle of things outside of a desk. Whereas from my own background, I'm actually quite comfortable walking on the street. I walked to school as a kid, so I think I'm very comfortable just doing all this random stuff. So even as a kid, I mentioned earlier, I think my comfort level is basically, generally my comfort level is quite high. I'm sitting in a coffee shop drinking a 1 ringgit coffee, and I'm thinking, in the 1990s, hey, don't you think this uncle over here has a relatively straightforward job? I don't think he makes $1 million, but he just sits there and collects coffee money. So I think maybe that's a very young angle, and of course it's an immature angle to look at it. There's a lot of work that goes into compliance for that uncle, but at the end of the day, anybody can do it. So for me, that was maybe that's the attitude I had. But the opportunity to do a business was more like in 2012, maybe, I started helping someone else to set up their boutique coffee shop. So they have now 2 cafes, one in Bukit Bintang, one in Bangsa. They have a roastery, they have a warehouse. So they want to do it well. They want to become like the Apple of coffee shops. That would be my client in 2012. So I learned a bit about how to run a coffee shop from those people. And I learned a bit about the culture, hipster culture, so to speak. Now, I'm very more of an academic. I'm not so clued into pop culture, except when I have to do it for business purposes. So working for my client to help set up their coffee shop, I had opportunity to study more about pop culture. So doing that and having that at the back of my head, right? And then one day, someone offered my client like a tenancy for some shop, right? And he looks at it and he goes, well, this place is too ugly, I can't use it. So I look at it and I say, it's kind of cool. Let me put it on Facebook and see what happens. So I put it on Facebook, and then suddenly I've got we raised a total of 300,000 to 400,000 ringgit to set up this coffee shop. And so the majority is certainly not owned by me. I own a very small minority. I just operate the coffee shop on behalf of all these people who put money into it. And when we don't make money, yes, I'm totally aware it is my fault, and then I have to pick up the pieces. That's what I do. So that was basically how it started, and that was in 2015. Yeah.
So, okay, tell us about the coffee business, especially the segment that you're in. So can I tell us a little? I should ask you about that earlier. I totally forgot about this. So
Okay.
what can you tell us about this? Yeah.
Okay. What is coffee fundamentally? Let's be very techy about it. At the end of the day, it's got demand because it's a drug. It helps people to get work done. But you can spin this in many different ways. For example, if you talk about alcohol, some people will say it's a drug to help you to relax. Now, if coffee is a drug to help you get work done, then for us, because I'm too lazy to compete with people who want to talk about how nice the coffee tastes or how great their food is, because everybody says the same thing. I might try and set up a brand that's very focused on, well, if the point of coffee is to get work done, then we should set the whole place and brand it as a workplace, even though we only charge you for coffee. Now, the cheapest coffee, the best value coffee you can get, the best value, also value for money. If you just need the drug and you need it to not taste too bad, go buy instant. There are many grades of instant. The popular one that everybody knows about without saying names is probably a pretty low value. You can get good value instant coffees, but if you need something that feels a bit more authentic, like it's cooked on the spot, then you're into the business of either brewing at a low pressure, which anybody can do, a hand brew coffee, or you're brewing at a high pressure, which can make it go faster. So that's what they call espresso. Espresso just means it's a fast coffee, fast to brew, fast to drink, get it out of the way and get back to work. So coffee has these formats, and it has a biological demand and has an economic demand because it gets people to work and people need to make money. Then you have this final thing about aesthetics, right? There are different grades. Some people say the instant bit is not of a high enough aesthetic quality. That's fine. And then you have people who make the real fresh coffee, and they complain it's not of a good enough quality also. Now, different people look for different things, of course. A large percentage of the market don't care about the taste, or they're very happy with a very boring taste. They just want it to taste brown, chocolatey, like a little bit of smoke, a bit bitter, and they're happy. They're not looking for apricots and lotus flower and things like that in their coffee. But there are people who are. So then you pay more. Broadly, you can differentiate what they call just commercial grade coffee and specialty grade coffee. So specialty grade tends to have a point system, but it tends to just mean that they've put more effort into making it produce interesting flavors. The same way people shop for wine and whiskey to have interesting flavors, coffee can be grown and processed and roasted and brewed to have interesting flavors also. So that is broadly the big picture of the coffee market.
Right. So, so as a result, is this the reason why that people that run coffee business don't always have a shop? I begin to see more and more running as a store or food truck, something like that. Is this the reason?
Sorry, the question is, why don't you need a shop? Is it?
No, the point is because the requirement for a coffee business is easy. It means that anybody can run it.
Yeah.
As a result, you literally don't need a shop. You can literally do it on the store or whatever, right?
Yeah, anyone can open an Indomie store. Anyone can open a coffee store.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's true.
Right.
Yeah, so
the business is yeah.
sorry, because we had a comment on YouTube about the sweet smile and greetings given by the staff. And I think you've mentioned before that you try to run things in a minimal fashion. How does this decision come about? How did this come about?
What are you relating? So you're talking about whether we train our staff to smile or not smile, or
Is that
part of the
part of
question?
owning the business? Yeah, is that something that you want to
Okay, I think
like expand on?
sure. So okay, we zoom out and talk about business in general. There's one concept in marketing that if you need a very simple framework to pick why your company exists, or what they call a marketing competitive advantage, there are a few ways to pick it. You can either be the absolute best quality provider. For example, you're the Apple of iPhones. Or you can be the absolute best value for money provider. So at any price point, you are playing that you pay $100, you get certain value. You pay $10, you get certain value, but it's better bang for your buck. So you shouldn't buy the best absolute quality product in iPhone. Maybe you should get like 10 Android phones for the same price, because you can do 10 times more, some people might say. So just to contrast between those two market positionings in business, either your best product or your best value. And then there's one more. That's you're the best relationship manager. Now, most small businesses and most medium-sized businesses also probably actually play on the third kind. You curate a local market, whether they're your friends, your business network, it's just the people who live near you, or whatever it is, right? Maybe you have a very niche type of technology customer, and then you run a SaaS only for them. So most businesses are relationship oriented. That's the nature of commerce. Very few people are going to be best in the market for value or best in the market for the product. Right. Okay. So now if you're in hospitality, which is the mothership for what we do. Okay. Traditionally, it's called Horeca for hotel, restaurant, and cafe. Horeca, traditionally. Nowadays, it's very easy to see that related to that is co-working spaces, co-living spaces, any kind of facilities management for rental properties, clubhouse management, office management. It's all pretty much the same type of business. For this discussion, let's just call it hospitality. Okay, so hospitality businesses, a lot of the time, people are going to go for that. We have a relationship advantage, and therefore, they will try and make their staff be a good relator to people. They will try and, you walk in the door, we make you feel good, we make sure you're comfortable the whole time, and then you go out and you remember us as nice people. That is very basic hospitality business skill set and positioning. Now, the business that I am running at the moment actually runs on a slightly different positioning. We don't actually aim to be the best relationship managers for any particular demographic. We aim to be a best value provider, actually. So we are playing a little bit of a different game. We want our people to be trained so that they are not going to be ignorant. You can't serve a customer if you don't know anything about your business. So our staff are not allowed to be ignorant about what they're doing. We try.
So if we ask about what does this coffee contain, they should be able to answer like this is what the beans are.
They should. Where at least where it comes from, how it's made, the barista should in our shop at least be able to tell you, if you want it more bitter, I can make it for you. If you want it more sour, I can make it for you. If you want it more sweet or less sweet, we can figure out how to make it. And they should be able to explain by changing physical variables such as the grind size or the temperature or the pressure, things like that. So that would be very fundamental. How does this stuff work? You're selling coffee, juice, but where does the juice come from and why does it taste different if you do different things to it? So all baristas need to know that. But we don't train them to do what some other shops will do on the relationship side, which is to say we don't train them. In fact, we train them not to do emotional labor for our customers. We run a 24-hour operation, and our brand is about infrastructure and high availability. So that is what we really want our guys to focus on. They must always be alert. They must always be able to do their job. They must be able to do a better job than anybody else within a certain area. Otherwise, customers will go there at 3 a.m. instead of coming to us. All of that takes priority over asking the customer, how are you? What did you do today? Are your kids doing all right? So that's all nice if you can handle it, but they really need to get the more brand valued items for our shop done first, which is service availability and quality.
Sometimes people would think that this is a very strange thing, but I don't think, for example, in a fast food restaurant, you would actually have someone from the dining staff that busses the tables, cleans the tables, to ask you how are you or something. You just expect them, you clean the table and then they're gone and that's it. But for some reason in a coffee shop, the expectations are different, and suddenly it's strange that people don't smile at you and then they just do their job and then they leave. So,
but I'm so sorry, but my usual coffee place, my kopitiam area is really just that. I grab my coffee, I grab my food, I'm out. So I know the lady that make the noodles, or the lady that own the shop. So, but me get in, get out, get in, buy, pay, out, and that's it. Just make sure it's something reasonable and don't poison me.
I think there are two kind of different. Can you guys hear me?
a bit soft.
A bit louder.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think some people like me, if I gotta grab something, I just it's actually more comfortable if you don't talk to me.
But it's just that some people have expectations, right? I don't know.
Different crowds for that.
Probably.
So different shops have different brands. You go to a different shop to get a different best value for something, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's the ambiance, it's whether they talk to you, whether they know your name, whether they have good coffee, maybe.
Yes. But sometimes they just try. It didn't work. Look at Starbucks. Hey, what's your name? And they will screw up every single time.
But that's part of the point.
Yeah, I think that's the part of the charm, right?
It's a bait.
It's like, I posted on social media together with the Starbucks logo.
So as a result, modern business expect you to be smile and all that, even though it's not real. So to me, it's like, get things done. I just give you my face. I'm done. Right?
Since you mentioned Starbucks,
don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. So my rule. Yeah.
Yeah. What about Starbucks?
So since you mentioned Starbucks and the name thing, they actually train their staff with that protocol to ask you your name, and then some say it's part of the training to slightly mess it up so that there's something to talk about, and then you remember them. Actually, that's entirely designed in. Some people say,
it backfired because there's no follow up at the end part.
So you mentioned something about being efficient and focusing on something, right? And one of the more recent ideas would be doing something like a back kitchen type, where you outsource all types of cooking, whatever, into a kitchen, and then the front would be okay, this is the brand, and then you order it, and it's about delivering and about the product, but everything is done by a back office, white label. Is that something? What do you think about it?
It's very trendy in the VC startup funding space right now. I think you all know they are called ghost kitchens. And what they mean is they have decoupled the seating area from the kitchen area. And you can have multiple kitchens and multiple seating areas. And you're supposed to have a software system that lets you, order food at home, or you go out and you get food from another shop or in the same network or whatever, and it's all very easy. So those are all things that can help, but you got to be really careful about it, I guess. A lot of people will jump on a trend and actually not know what they're supposed to do because they think that the trend is very clear. It's not. There's maybe like 10 things you can do under that trend, and each one of those has to be done differently. So you could, for example, focus on the software layer, and you're just a broker. And that would be a pure SaaS play. You're just going to market the shit out of it because you need to have the most users and bridge the most buyers and sellers. I'm actually reading from some notes I wrote down about the subject a long time ago. The other thing you can do if you actually have a lot of money is you actually want to own the physical layer. So, for example, if you look at people like Grab, they really want to be a middleman. They don't want to be like owning too much infrastructure. But if you have a lot of cash and you have the expertise, then running your own infrastructure and that gives you an edge on margins and gives you some control about things. Then actually the delivery service is a third part. So for example, Grab, they don't necessarily own kitchens, but they have the software, they bridge people, but they also do fulfillment. They also have the network of delivery people. Other services may actually own their own delivery people who are on salary. Grab doesn't do that. They doesn't put their own delivery people on salary. They just give it to freelancers, right?
Does Grab ever, or do people ever order from your shop through Grab? Or like through any
our shop is at the moment intentionally very, very low tech. We have no credit card. We only accept cash. We do not have any external ordering services built in yet. All those are things we would like to do, but we are slightly understaffed in terms of how to handle that right now. And that of course you could restructure a lot of different things. It's just not one of our priorities right now. I think at the point at which we have nothing better to do than to grow sales, then yes, we will turn on all these things which are very straightforward. Also, I was avoiding Grab for a while because they actually didn't have service after 12 a.m. But I think in the last 1 year, they have changed and improved on that. And because we are basically a 24-hour business, I would never hook up with a partner that was not also 24 hours, for example.
Right.
Yeah. But now I think it's a good time to work with them if we have the energy for it. Yeah.
So I have some questions for Grab later, but for now, just now you said something really interesting. Profit is not your primary thing, or it's one of your primary thing. Explain to me on that.
Okay, a business, the point of putting money into a business is you expect to see some return from it.
Yeah,
right.
Correct.
But that's a black box. There are a million different ways to do it. You can have a horizon of 50 years. You can have a horizon of 2 years. My personal interest, and I'm not speaking for my shareholders because they will speak for themselves, is that I basically have nothing to do with my time, and so all my time for the last 5 years has been put into this business to develop and learn all about the industry and to see how we can get a long-term advantage. But I do not think we have a clear one yet. I have my finger on a lot of possibilities, but I still think we are in the R&D phase. What we would really like to do, I think, is when we understand the space really well, we are going to be able to provide services for other people to run their shops. So the entire hospitality sector, the hotels, restaurants, cafes, co-working spaces, facilities managers of clubs and swimming pools, they all hire minimum wage workers. They all do accounts the same way, very boring. IT is very boring. You do supply chain management, is very basic. It's buying toilet paper and soap and coffee beans. And you have to train people and you have to keep things clean. Touch points are basically the same. So now there's hundreds of thousands of businesses in this hospitality space. And my sense is that most of them are redoing many of these individual business functions over and over again. What I want to become, I want to understand how to become a provider to all of these guys. I want to build a platform as a service, maybe. It may be partly IT, but it also has to involve a lot of warm bodies, right? Because we are basically a warm body industry. Our servers are meat, they're not metal. So one day, maybe, we will be in that space where we are platform as a service for the hospitality industry. Right now, we're just running one cafe, and it's kind of like a prototype in the sense we have to learn everything we can from that one space.
Does this platform as a service include the way you would train the career plan for the servers or like the employees? Like how do they progress? How do they become? Is that included in that?
I think it would be possible, again, because the way I've described it could be anything, right? So broad. But I think in the business vernacular, the language that people use in business for what you just referred to is talent management. And talent management has a few components. There's the acquisition, hiring. There's the development. So you've got to train someone from no skill to skill, some skill to more skill. And then you've got to retain them. And then for each one, of course, there's the negative side. You don't want to hire everybody. How do you pick the ones you don't want to hire? There are some things you don't want people to learn. You need them to unlearn some things. How do you do that? There are people you need to get out of the organization because you will not be able to afford to train them ever. In fact, if they stay, basically you will lose money. So all those things are basically talent management. And okay, I think there are different angles on this. Different people will look at, what a human being is and say it's either a very simple thing or it's very complex. And it's probably complex, right? The thing is, some people have a framework of how you want to organize a person's thought processes or physical as well. And if you have more of these measures, so what you measure, if you measure how a person thinks from minute to minute, to hour, from day to day, from month to month, and over the years as they work, the more things you measure, the more things you are able to help people manage. That's very basic in business. If you can measure it, you can manage it. If you do not measure it, you cannot manage it. So if we were seeking to help the entire hospitality sector, right, to work on improving talent management, we would have to be really good at measuring things that hospitality staff do. And sure, given that we do this for our own staff, we have some idea of how to do it. But we are not, for example, I won't say we are doing any external clients at the moment. We are just doing it internally. We are training people. We have people who came in with no experience in cooking, who now can cook. They can calibrate specialty grade coffee. They can clean, do hospitality, do inventory. They can order stocks. They can do even what you call retail merchandising. How do you position the flower vase or the card or the message in the little thing? So all these things are trained on a CM by CM, inch by inch sort of basis. And it takes a long time to train one person, but it can be done.
I'm curious that how long it normally takes you to bring them up to that kind of capability.
Okay. I think you also know the answer is it's going to be very individual dependent. Now, most recently, I'll give you a case study. We have some staff who after like 1 year, right, they are able to cook everything on the menu. Then after that, we put them in the front of house. And then after another year, after 2 years on the job, they're able to do everything at the service level in the shop, right? From cash count to cooking to calibrating to training the new staff as well. So let's say you don't go in with any expectations. I think you've done pretty well after 2 years. You got one guy that knows every single station. He's like a full stack cafe staff, sort of. He can do back end, he can do front end. But if you have two of them, then they can double team and run around. So that's nice. Recently, what happened was we had one staff who came in and after 3 months, he couldn't even pick up one station. So he's like, I don't get it. Everybody is just angry at him all the time. So, okay, so about talent management, what I could have done is I could have done the same thing I did with the other guys. Every day I go in there and, okay, do the Gordon Ramsay thing. Your carrot needs to be over here. It can't be over there. Yeah, things like that. But at some point, you need to do what they call build a pyramid. You need to delegate the training, the activity to other people. So I left this new staff to some of my staff who are more experienced. And I said, okay, you guys figure him out. Since after all, he's here only because you guys wanted him to be here. You have full control over whether you keep him or you let him go. So after 3 months, they're like, oh, wow, he's improving and he's great. Or he'll have a chance if he keeps improving. So they say, let's keep him. And so they kept him. And then they kept training him. And after 6 months, they told me everybody is just pissed at him. He refuses to do work. He doesn't want to do this, doesn't want to do that. Then I was like, okay, it's your decision. You guys want to let him go, then you just tell him, and then we give him 3 months notice, which is fair, and then that's it. And what I told my staff, the one thing you need to learn about this is that now you've had to work with this 1, 2, 3, whoever it is, people that you don't like, you have to work for them for 9 months. Because in Malaysia, you have 9 months to fire somebody. You cannot fire them very fast if you want to do it properly, to be fair by Malaysian rules. So what happened is that, guys, if you don't fire within the first 3 weeks, you're stuck with him for 9 months. Next time you decide faster in the first 3 weeks whether you want to train somebody. So I think there are some things you have to check really early on. And that takes some experience, because there's no point me telling my staff, 9 months ago, you have to have 3 weeks to guide him. They wouldn't know where to draw the line. But after 9 months of working with someone that they don't like, they know next time within 3 weeks what they're going to do. So I think that's part of the delegation process. That's part of training people to train other people, and it has to happen gradually, bit by bit, and so on and so forth. Right?
Do you have more case studies on, not necessarily on employee, but like stories? It seems to be the most interesting parts. Like, let's say about customers that are being very, very picky in how you would be handling them.
I'll give you a couple of small stories about customers, but we really don't focus on that too much. So we have a few extreme case studies. I'll give you those. But I think the more interesting stories, because myself, I background or whatever where I come from, I'm just very detail oriented about regulations. So I think the way Malaysian legal system is set up is really strange. So I'll give you a bigger story on that later. But just back to the customers first. Again, I said that our brand that we run over here, this cafe, is we're very functional, utilitarian. It's work. It's about doing things to get you somewhere. And so often we have maybe some customers who are used to going to a cafe where their expectation is they get to chill. And chill is like the complete opposite of what we do as a brand. We are work, we are not chill. So, there's this phrase that people throw around called zero chill, which means that you're anxious and you're stressful. And we are pretty much a zero chill brand, as bad as the connotation is. We want people to come to us when they feel a need to work. Now, so we get other customers sometimes. They'll come in and they'll take up a whole table and they'll have a chat, but they won't order anything, and so on and so forth. Over the years, we have had to come up with a protocol for staff to tell these people it is not okay for you to sit here and not order anything. The reason is that a lot of staff are actually very shy. Maybe some of us who have started businesses, we are very more brave or abrasive, or just we don't care. So somebody comes in, we tell them these are the rules, you just follow it, or that's it. But a lot of staff are very shy. So we now have this thing where if someone doesn't want to order, there's a protocol. They get asked once, they get told it's a rule, they get asked the second time. If they still haven't ordered, we actually send them the free drink. And the reason we send them the free drink is because it's a big, can you see my finger? Yeah, okay. It's a big vat, while we give them a rules card. We don't want to give them a card and just say, now you have a reason to give us a 1-star review. We actually just give you a free drink first. Now, if you're going to downgrade us after we gave you the free drink, that's on you. But basically, that's a new staff protocol we put in a couple of years ago to help customers understand in the nicest way possible, they cannot come in and not order things. So that's a story I have from talent management as well as customer service and our AG brand. Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of these protocols, they're just like refinements of things that you've tried and it didn't work, and then you try different things until you focus on something or you find something that actually works, and then you stick to that.
Iterative product development, everybody calls it that, right? For whether it's tech or for a service that is hands and legs and arms, and yeah. So definitely, for example, early on, I would just tell staff, you just tell them the rules. Then after a while, you see the staff is always nervous. They're always going to have negative feelings every time they do that. Then you say, okay, stop having negative feelings. Give them a free drink. Does that make you feel better? The staff is like, yeah, it makes me feel better. Give them a free drink. So now your staff is motivated. Just get the job done.
Okay. Swimming, did you have something? You're muted.
You're muted.
I can't think of anything now.
It's actually something I'm not sure if you guys asked because I joined pretty late, because I know Jerng actually is working on a OTP implementation in JavaScript related
Okay,
to
that is like left nothing to do with coffee, right? It's for fun. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Talent management. Oh, so you have something about the comment about law and stuff. I want to expand on that.
Sure. Okay. Let's say you own a shop with a storefront, like a cafe or a bookstore that has a 5-foot way outside, right? Now here's the thing. Here's how the legal system is structured. There's a hierarchy, right? So it starts with, first you've got a national constitution, right? The law that says why does this country exist, right? Then under that constitution, you have these things called acts, which delegate. Oh, there's an act for the environment. There's an act for technology. There's an act for data. There's an act for child abuse. There's an act for local councils. How do you do local governments, right? So how much power does the federal government delegate to the city council, for example, your DBK or your MBPJ? All right. So the way the law is right now, the local councils, all your city councils, they can write their own rules. There are little rules, undang kecil, or in English, bylaws, and they can enforce these rules. But guess what? As a consumer, as a citizen, you can't read the rules. They're not written anywhere. So what happens is someone will come and enforce you, and I'll go to the city council and I'll say, can you show me the rule? And they'll say, you have to go buy a copy of the law. And who's publishing this? It's a private party that has, the mandate to publish laws on behalf of the government. But the city council itself, they'll tell you, we are enforcers of the law. We're not allowed to give you a copy of the law. Look, you can read our copy, but you can't photograph it. So, so that is really screwed up. Now, there are a lot of these little things that happen, and they affect us as citizens all the way down from the top down to the small business owner level and even to the individual level. But that's one of my favorite stories. Trying to understand what I'm getting fined for and being told I have to go buy a copy of the law because it was changed. And yeah, it's a private company that sells a copy of the law, and that the city council is not allowed to publish what it is a law, even though they're allowed to fine you for it.
That is a bit new to me, but I actually totally understand it because recent one, I do not know whether the coffee shop outside my house, that since closed down, is legal. That is bloody fire hazard. It's a housing area. Now it's a bit worse. Now it's a tire shop, meaning they repair cars and all that. Even bigger fire hazard. So random thought. So those are small laws that I'm interested in, or how far I can extend my house. And yeah, that's why my side project lah. That's the main motivation actually. So I totally understand that part.
They do say that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So I guess they're bringing this to like its conclusion.
So the thing is, the way they do the law is they never seriously thought it through. You make it so that the easiest way for you to access the law is by buying a subscription service. Lexis, which fine, they got some extra research for legal industry. That's the original law tech, but the citizen need to know whether they can extend the house. You know what I mean? So
but the thing is, like, even if you don't know the law, you're still covered by it. Like you still have to abide by it. And
yeah, at least we know that we should not extend that far.
Again.
Yeah, so I guess my point is this. I mean, that's true. So ignorance of the law is not an excuse. It doesn't make you you're still liable if you break it.
Yes.
But when you see a pattern where what happens is that the law changes and they don't publish it, so no one knows they're breaking the law, and you see that happening a lot, then you really need to go back and say, we need to change the system a bit. There's something missing from your law because this doesn't work.
Yes.
That's a protocol issue. And actually, the way to get it changed is pretty straightforward. I mean, when everything works according to protocol, like code, right? Essentially, all you do is you go back to Parliament, you write an amendment, and you vote it in. And then, once it's voted in, the laws have changed. But that's generally not yet the culture in Malaysia. Malaysia has this culture of you always complain upwards and wait and see what happens, but you don't actually try and do it the protocol way. I think that's a cultural thing. So we'll see how that goes over the years.
They want a phone they need a red phone to the government. So that's my expectation, right? This last one to it's 11. We should close, but here's I can't think of question. I forgot my question.
No,
So
I wanted to read through some of the comments that people have been posting. Seems like there was apparently my background says coffee, and someone says he wants coffee now just because of the background of coffee at the back. So okay, it wasn't planned, but I just happened to be in the office. But it's a good thing. And some people were saying, oh, so Chris has an advice for you, Jerng. Like after they get the free drink, tell them to buy cake to mix and blend with the coffee. I don't know if that will actually work.
But that said, I find the business interesting, the way you run it. Something that I didn't get to ask, maybe if we have chance next time, is you tend to run the business. I find that very interesting, but you had a system for it. I can't figure out the system yet, but there's a system behind it. That's very interesting, but maybe next time. So any last word before we close this?
I'm not sure. I think every shop has a system. Maybe some have more, some have fewer, more formal, less formal. We try to make things really formal at our shop because at the end of the day, we want to understand like what works. So I just push it to like military levels of mechanism. I don't know. If you want to talk about like a silly OTP thing I'm working on maybe next time or something outside of this, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that being said, well, thanks for coming. So if anyone else had anything extra to add, if not, I think we can wrap it up there.
Yeah, if anyone wants to reach you, how do they reach you? Probably Slack or.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on. I'm not always logged into the engineers MY Slack. I'm sorry, because it doesn't really affect my work at the moment a lot. So I log in sometimes. It's easiest to find me on WhatsApp. Put my number in the comment, or Facebook or LinkedIn. But WhatsApp and Facebook is most common in F&B.
Or most likely, maybe if you would like to ask more questions, put it on the comments on this video, and then we'll get a notification. We'll make sure that Jerng knows about it.
Yes.
If maybe you want to start like a consulting thing about starting, people might be interested, so they might want to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
Happy to talk to any new business owner or operator who needs advice or whatever over a coffee. Of course, that's our business.
All right. So that's it. Can we wrap up then?
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me to.
Thanks for listening to us and all that.
All right.
Bye.
All right. See ya.
I'm going to end.